Coach, this place is fascinating, and I tell you, I'm liking the looks of this car.
Well, I got something exciting to show you, Derwin. Before I say that, though, or go through that, take a look at that in the background.
Oh, my goodness.
When we go through life, the race of life, you don't want to have a bunch of wrecks. That's what this little study is all about. That is a bad weekend. Let's don't have that in life.
So don't let me drive a car, because that's what I'll do.
Now, you're probably thinking I'm going to show you something about this car. No, I'm going to show you something about that car. This is a soapbox derby. Okay, and me and my grandsons, we put this together. My two oldest grandsons, we had this shipped to us. We wanted to race soapbox. We loved it, had seen it. And so we wanted to have this little project put together. Now, I got out in the garage with them, and I started working on this. Right away, I figured out I'm a mechanical Dumbo, okay? I couldn't get very far with this. So I turned around and called the local soapbox guy, and I said this to him. I said, look, I need somebody that can help me with this, help put this together. He sent over a guy that was absolutely great. He worked with me and my grandson. He was an ex-engineer. And we finally got it put together.
But how do you race this? I mean, it has no engine, so
yeah.
So what do you?
No engine. This one, all you do is coast downhill. So it's all aerodynamic, and the little guys get in there and they have a chance to drive it. It's really fun. But, you know, this little project and then racing it on weekends, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Derwin, is one of the most enjoyable things that I've had a chance to do in life.
That's awesome. Hey, men, this week we're going to study about salvation and how you make a decision, how you make a choice to play on God's team. Team captains, I want you to take a time out, answer the questions in the book, and I'll catch you on the other side of the break.
This is football weather. I love that about football.
I tell you what, if my knee wasn't hurt, I'd go run some sprints.
I'm not running any sprints with you. I think you're a lot faster than I am.
Hey, well, welcome back, man. Today we're going to talk about salvation, or making God's team. When we talk about salvation, we don't talk about courage, that it takes an act of courage to join God's team, because everything in our culture is fighting against that. And so one of the things that I know that's a passion for yours is to reclaim this aspect of courage for men. And the most courageous thing that we can do is join God's team. So can you share with us kind of your story?
Well, I guess I've been in the world, men's world, where it's been sports, and I admire courage. Give you a little example of that, just kind of give you something I experienced just here recently. We have Joey Logano driving our Cup car. And now here's a kid that is 19 years old, racing in the biggest division in stock car racing. And so we're at Dover, Delaware, and race starts. We think we got a good car. We got shuffled back a little bit on the first pit stop. And Joey gets going there, and they're around that place, they are hauling. You're talking about 180 miles an hour or so, you know, down the stretch.
180 miles an hour?
Yeah, they're flying.
Wow.
And so a couple of cars get in trouble and check up a little bit. Joey tried to come down low on the track and gets hit from behind. Initially, the car goes to the bottom, turns back up at Dover, and it's a severe banking there. Mm-hmm. The car gets up on its nose, gets hit by another car, and he tumbles 8 times. It's tumbling down the stretch. Okay.
8 times, and he's 19 years old.
19-year-old. And so I'm kind of looking at that and I'm going, oh my gosh. Of course, our first concern was Joey, you know, is he okay? Uh-huh. Gets out of the car. They take him to the ambulance, take him to the medical center. I go in there with him. And amazing thing, we're standing in there, and I mean, he was shaking up a little bit, and he's kind of looking around. And the nurse comes in and she says, okay, what's hurting? And he kind of looks at her and he goes, nowhere. I'm not hurting at all. And but during that next week, it was interesting because a lot of people said, hey, here's a young guy in a car. It's going to probably take him a couple of months to come back from this. You know, I mean, and mentally it's going to affect you and everything. First big wreck he's had. First time he's been upside down in a car, you know, a Cup car, and all these kind of things. And so we talked during the week, and he goes, you know, he says, you know, I feel pretty good. I says, well, you want to kind of say to the world that you're a tough guy, race that car hard this weekend. His very next time in the race car to race on the track, he goes back out and wins the race.
That is
And
awesome.
I kind of think to myself, I mean, this is, you talk about making a statement on tough and being a tough guy. I think he made a real statement to the whole racing world. I think a lot of things, I admire people, I've kind of been around sports my whole life, so you admire people covering kickoffs, driving race cars at 200 miles an hour, but I got to tell you, I also admire mothers that take a stand for their kids, and a stand, you see it all the time in life, where they stand up and say, hey, I'm going to take a stand for my children. You see the dad that accepts responsibility, is the right kind of dad at home, has the discipline to stay there, be a part of that family, and nurture his own kids. And so you see people that take stands like that in life, that takes courageous stands. And so I kind of say to people, I admire people. I admire people with courage, I really do. You know, having said that, does it take some courage to take a stand for Christ? Yeah, it takes some courage. You know, you're going to stand up and say, look, I'm making a personal commitment to get on God's team in the game of life. There's only two teams. You either play with him or you play against him forever. I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to get on God's team. You know, I'm going to change my language. I'm going to tell my friends I've taken a stand for Christ. I'm going to change my life, my relationships. And so does that take some courage? And I say to people, yeah, it probably takes some courage. But think about this. Crucified on a cross. No, that takes courage.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what Christ was willing to do for us. And he says he would have done that had it only been you or I. And so we have a courageous Lord that sent his son, Jesus Christ, here to this earth, died, lived a perfect life. You know, he allowed himself to be crucified on the cross for you and I. So I just encourage everybody to take a stand. Taking a stand for Christ is the greatest decision I ever made in my life, because it affects every other decision.
Absolutely, Coach. When you start doing the pointing thing, I was ready. And you know, that's what I love about your book, is that you're calling men to be courageous. And you're calling men to be courageous, not in the power of themselves, but like you pointed out, that the living God of the universe came in the person of Jesus Christ and did the most courageous thing a human being could ever do, die for the sins of the world. And somewhere along the way, we as men have gotten this idea that to become a Christian means you're less courageous, whereas what your book is pointing out is that when we follow Christ, we become the courageous, adventurous men that we're created to be. Coach, once again, you have recruited another expert, Chuck Colson. He's going to break down what this courageous step of salvation means and how it impacts the rest of our lives. And so we want to take a look at Chuck's stats.
Joe, let me first say I'm thrilled to be part of this project, and I love being with you. We've been friends for a long time. I have enormous respect for you, and I love the way you're using your Christian witness now, using your position in sports for a Christian witness. So I'm thrilled to be here. Getting on God's team is a great way to put it, because that's exactly what you do. You switch sides. You were once outside looking in. Now you're on the inside, and you're understanding God, and you're living with him day by day. It is the most radical transformation possible. I look back at my life and I realized that the major turning points, there was a turning point when I went in the Marines that took a flabby college kid and made him into a man, and I loved it. Great training, great leadership experience, but nothing in my life has compared to being in an automobile, having heard the gospel, trying to drive out of my friend's driveway, and I couldn't because I was crying too hard. Big, tough ex-Marine infantry captain, known as the White House hatchet man. I was crying so hard, and I didn't understand what it was. I just knew I wanted to know God. I didn't even know the right words. You know, you say, how do you get on God's team? It's so incredibly simple in one sense, because I just cried out and said, I didn't know the right words to say. I just cried out and I said, God, take me. Take me the way I am. I'm convicted of my sin. I want to be clean. Make me clean. I remember saying that over and over and over. Once you get your own pride out of the way, then you can understand it. But I don't care whether you're a bartender, I don't care whether you're a football player, I don't care whether you're sweeping streets, or whether you're CEO of a major company. Your pride, that is, I can do it my way, is what stands between you and God. And once you're willing to surrender that, once you recognize that, it's the greatest liberating experience in the world. We're prisoners of our own pride. We're prisoners of ourselves. We put ourselves in this box and we can't get out of it. Yeah, you get out of it. You step out of it, and God is waiting for you. But the big thing that holds so many people back is they think, like your dad, I got to earn it. But you can't earn it.
Can't earn it.
You can't earn it, because if you earned it, you'd be God. And the other thing that hasn't changed, Joe, and you would see this in football, as I've seen it in other areas of life, all the circumstances change. All the nature of the way things are done changes. But a football team still wins the game by understanding blocking and tackling and the basics. The fundamentals never change. All of the different kind of plays may work, and all the things you do to make the game more sophisticated today. But the fundamentals you got to get right, and there's certain fundamentals about life. And one of those fundamentals is that we are stubborn, we're rebellious, we think we know it all, and as you get older you realize you really didn't know much then, and you don't know that much more now. You realize with a little humility of age how little you really knew about life. But you got to get it right. You got to understand that God made us. What's your option? That we're just spinning here on this planet with no purpose. And I look around the beauty of this place and I say to myself, that's impossible. Can this be some cosmic accident? We make all these space probes, we look at the planets out there, we see no sign of life. Here is life and the incredible sophistication. Your body is made up of cells, billions of cells. Everyone is programmed for its functions by a DNA, which Bill Gates says is more sophisticated than any software he's ever developed. The human body is programmed by intelligence. Intelligence doesn't come about by chance. So you know there's a God. So, okay, get that straight first. Second, you got to understand yourself. That's the fundamental of life. And we're born with a disposition to take care of ourselves. Most dangerous person in the world is a young baby who's grabbing and clutching and doesn't know what they're doing, but they want to grab things for themselves. And that's the way we're made. And so our culture is merely a reflection of us. When you see all the ads on television wanting to pander to our worst instincts, it's because we want to have our worst instincts pandered to. So get smart about who you are, and then realize that God created us with a free will so we could do what we wanted to do and be free agents, and we could choose right or choose wrong, and we've chosen wrong, but he takes care of that by giving us his son. And that's what Christianity is. It is his son coming to deliver us from bondage to our own sin, to break the reign of Satan in our lives. And most people, if they get honest with themselves, know that they don't like what's inside. You know, I was one of those guys who succeeded at everything, and I thought I was pretty good. And I figured God is going to be like any good college professor who grades on a curve, and I'll do fine. I didn't do anything in politics the Democrats hadn't done before us, so I'll be okay. Well, that's a totally wrong view, because it is your nature. It's not what you've done so much as it is what you talked about before. Human nature never changes. We're bent towards evil. We fall short of the glory of God. And that's what sin is. It comes from the term of archery, where the arrow fell short. Every human being does. But you gotta get that moment in your life where you're honest with yourself and realize, whoa, I want to not be the way I am. I want to be clean. That was what I cried out to God in the midst of the dark days of Watergate, when I could see things crumbling around me and everything I'd worked for. And I thought to myself, I was part of this. It really stabbed me. It was like a knife. And thank God he did stab me, and he will stab people. People watching this will be stabbed thinking about themselves, because I will say right now, there isn't anybody watching who doesn't have sinful desires in his own mind.
Coach Gibbs told us a great story about how he and his grandson built this soapbox racing car. This race car is designed to just coast downhill. Well, the enemy, he wants you to stay in a car like this that coasts downhill. He wants you to coast downhill in life. But God, when he offers you salvation, what he's offering you is a new life. It's symbolic of this engine right here. You see, this engine has power. And to get behind the wheel of a vehicle with an engine like this takes courage. So when God offers us salvation, he offers us a new engine or a new heart so that we can run the race of life with purpose and with passion. Time to get on the racetrack of life, man.